I had some spicy meatballs last night. Do not stand downwind of me. Trust me. Nah, I'm pretty regular. I guess, I don't know, about 12 to 14 times a day. That's normal, right? No, none of them float. No, my dumps just, I'm on the air? Welcome to the Comparison Group Podcast, the serious podcast for political discussion. The verdict is in, and the consensus seems to be that talk radio host had no reason to speak to me like that. He was an a-hole. I know my audience may be a little bit biased in my favor, but people on Twitter agree that's no way to conduct a radio call-in show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to my last show. It did lead to some good discussion, though, and it was a very popular show. Very popular. Thank you again. Thank you so much for the downloads, for the listens. I sure do appreciate it. It appears I have some regular listeners at this point. A bunch of regular listeners. Can't believe that. You guys must be as crazy as I am to listen to what I have to say. But thank you. Please keep listening. I hope this show is going to get better as it gets bigger, gets more widespread, gets more popular. I'll be able to do some things that I'm not really able to do now. So keep listening, hang in there with me, and I appreciate it. Comparison Group Podcast, the podcast for people in the middle. The podcast for discussion, not debate. Follow me on Twitter at comparison_show. At comparison_show. I'm going to continue the discussion about the $3.5 trillion spending bill since it was such a good discussion. And I'm going to try and answer some of Bernie Sanders' burning questions about the specifics. He said he wanted specifics from Joe Manchin. So I'm going to give some. Let's start the show. So Joe Biden has met with the Democratic caucus, he and Nancy Pelosi, and he's promising that they're going to get the $1 trillion infrastructure bill and the $3.5 trillion spending bill, the reconciliation bill, done. When he was asked by a reporter when it was going to get done, he said it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, doesn't matter, which is code for, I don't know. But he's promising that these bills are going to get done. I can tell you they're probably not going to get done the way they're written right now, which I could get into a whole tangent about that, about the fact that the Progressive Caucus is holding up the $1 trillion bill for the $3.5 trillion spending bill when they could have just months ago agreed to a smaller bill. But let's not get caught up on that. Let's stick with what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to give some specifics on the concerns with the $3.5 trillion spending bill. And I know I've discussed this a lot already. I've discussed my issues, my concerns, but I want to get specific for the sake of Bernie Sanders. He wants specifics. He said he wants specificity. I'll play the clip for you. He wants specifics. I'll give him credit for being able to say specificity. That's a tough word to say. But just to catch people up in case they don't know, the infrastructure bill has already passed the Senate. It passed with a strong majority, including both Democrats and Republicans. There isn't much disagreement on the need to fix our roads, our bridges, expand broadband, modernize our airports. All of that is good. It's good for people. It's good for the economy. It's good for business. So no problem passing the infrastructure bill in the Senate. And it would easily pass the House as well, but it's being held up by progressives like Alexandria, I even hate desserts that are rich, Ocasio-Cortez. The progressives in the House are refusing to pass the infrastructure bill unless they have a guarantee that their $3.5 trillion spending bill, mostly social programs, will be passed in the Senate. Now, this is being held up in the Senate by two Democratic senators, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And I've talked in the past, just a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I did a show discussing what was in the bill, how much it cost, who it could possibly help, how it might potentially hurt. So check out that show if you'd like to get a explanation of what's in the bill or get an idea of what's in the bill. And by the way, as long as I'm saying that, I've noticed in the past week, maybe 2 weeks, a lot of Democrats coming out, a lot of commentators coming out and saying, we need to tell people what's in the bill. We should tell people what's in the bill and how it would help them. Well, yeah, Democrats, maybe that's part of your problem. Your ego and your mindset that you're so smart and you know what's best for people that you came out with this $3.5 trillion spending bill months ago and it's only occurring to you now. Maybe we should tell people what's in it. If you're a regular listener to my show, you might remember I started talking about Biden's agenda and discussing it before the pullout from Afghanistan. Then Afghanistan happened and I got distracted, did 3 shows on that. But I was talking about explaining to people what was in this bill, what it was all about months ago. The Democrats are just now coming to the realization that maybe they should explain to people what's in this bill. I just find that interesting, but I digress. Because for the purposes of discussion on the show, I want to answer Bernie Sanders' question. It wasn't a question for me. It was a question for Joe Manchin, but I'm going to help Manchin out if he wants my help. But first, let's listen to Bernie Sanders. Let's listen to a clip of Bernie Sanders.
I want to say a few words about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that a number of us are fighting for. And I'd also like to make some brief comments about what Senator Manchin said earlier today.
Why does he talk like he's a vampire from Transylvania? I'm sorry, I messed that up. I got to start over now.
I want to say a few words about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that a number of us are fighting for. And I'd also like to make some brief comments about what Senator Manchin said earlier today. First, let us be clear. Poll after poll, including polls in West Virginia, show that what we are trying to do in this reconciliation bill is enormously popular.
Okay. Ice cream and pizza are very popular, too. If you polled people about that, you'd get a very favorable opinion on those things. That doesn't mean they don't make you fat. So I'd really like Democrats to stop pointing out that giving money away to people is popular. No, I get it. I know it is. Let's continue.
Now, Senator Manchin, as I understand it, talked about today about not wanting to see our country become an entitlement society. Well, I am not exactly sure what he means by that. Does that mean that we end the $300 direct payments for working class parents, which have cut childhood poverty in this country as a result of the American Rescue Plan in half? Is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty an entitlement? Does
Yes.
Senator Manchin think we should once again have one of the highest levels of childhood poverty of any major country on earth? At a time when millions of seniors in Vermont, in West Virginia, all across this country, have teeth in their mouths that are rotting, when they can't afford hearing aids in order to communicate with their grandchildren, and when they can't afford a pair of glasses in order to read a newspaper, does Senator Manchin really believe that seniors are not entitled to digest their food and that they're not entitled to hear and see properly? Is that really too much to ask in the richest country on earth, that elderly people have teeth in their mouth and can see and can hear?
So now I just have to stop it here. And this is not even getting into my specific concerns yet, but this is what Bernie loves to do. This is what Bernie loves to do. We're the richest country in the world. I've talked about that before. No, we're not. No, we're not. If you have $1 billion, but you owe $10 billion, that doesn't make you rich. Doesn't even really make you a billionaire, technically. It makes you broke. So America is not the richest country in the world. I really wish Bernie Sanders would stop saying it, because he uses it to guilt people into saying, how can we not allow seniors to digest their food? Does Joe Manchin really believe people shouldn't be allowed to digest their food? Does Joe Manchin really believe seniors being able to hear is an entitlement? No, I don't think he does, Bernie. What I think he believes is what he said. $3.5 trillion is too much money for a country to spend that doesn't have any money. That's what I think he believes. I don't think Joe Manchin has any problem with cutting childhood poverty. I think Joe Manchin would love it if we could cut childhood poverty in West Virginia and everywhere else. Maybe he's wondering why you just increased food stamps if you cut childhood poverty. Answer that question, Bernie. The COVID relief bill included an increase in food stamps. When that ended, Congress increased the food stamps separately after your claims of cutting childhood poverty. If poverty is down, why are food stamps up to a record level? Maybe that's a concern that Joe Manchin has. Not that he wants to see kids go to bed hungry. He wants to know why we're increasing food stamps as we're lowering poverty.
Does Senator Manchin believe that we should be the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, and that working mothers should not be able to stay home with a child who is sick? Are workers not entitled to be able to do that?
Maybe he believes it should be provided by the business. Maybe he believes the business should incentivize people to work for them by providing paid family leave, not the federal government. The federal government can then incentivize the business to provide it with some sort of tax credits for the business. But maybe Joe Manchin just believes it would incentivize people to take jobs that they otherwise may not take because of benefits like paid family leave.
Does Senator Manchin believe that working class parents in West Virginia and Vermont should not have to pay? Does he believe that they should have to pay 25 or 30% of their incomes on childcare? All over this country, working class families are paying 25 or 30% of their incomes on childcare so that they could go out and do their jobs. Are the children of this country not entitled to high-quality childcare and pre-K education? Does Senator Manchin not believe that at a time when we have a major labor shortage in many parts of this country, because our young people lack the skills they need, that they are not entitled to at least 2 years of free community college so they can get the training in order to go out and get the good-paying jobs that are there? Senator Manchin has been extremely critical of the $3.5 trillion proposal that many of us support. In fact, 9 out of 11 members of the Budget Committee support. But the time is long overdue for him to tell us with specificity, not generalities, we're beyond generalities, with specificity, what he wants and what he does not want, and to explain that to the people of West Virginia and America.
Okay, so if you listen to my show, you've heard me say a million times, it's not about the need for some of these programs. It's not about reducing the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. It's not about childcare, the need for childcare. It's not about a need or whether or not any of these programs would be good programs. So I'm not going to belabor that point anymore. Bernie wants specific concerns. I'm going to give you just a few specific concerns. First of all, on the 2 years free community college, the way the bill is written now, as I understand it, the federal government would pay 75%, the state would pay 25%. How about a change where the feds pay 50%, the state pays 25%, and the student pays 25%? How about let's have the student have a little skin in the game? Just a little skin in the game, because I think you'll find when you give things to people for free, they don't appreciate it as much, they don't work as hard. And I'd hate to see the American taxpayer paying for students to go to 2-year community college for free and they don't get a degree. We don't get the outcome, the benefit that we're looking for. How about specifically a provision in the bill if the student does drop out of college? doesn't complete and get the degree, they now owe the money back. The money that they received, they now owe back. I have a real problem when people take advantage of some of the legitimate programs offered by our federal government. We don't get the outcome that we expect from them, and then they walk away not owing the money back, but they end up getting more benefits from other programs. They move on to the next program, the next program, the next program, or they get tax refunds, never owing any of the money back, but also never getting back, the American people never get back the benefit that we thought we were going to get from the program. So it would be a shame, in my opinion, for a lot of these students to go kind of goof off for a couple of years, not take it seriously, and not get a degree. And I don't think it's outrageous to bring up that specific concern. Joe Manchin can't say this, but I'll say it. There are a lot of kids who don't really need to be going to college. Let's just say they're not thinkers. That's not their strong suit. School is not their strong suit. They may have abilities in other areas, but school is not one of them. I think the scientific term for these kids is they're idiots. Let's weed out the idiots by saying you have to pay 25% of this tuition, and a lot of them would probably decide not to go. The ones who really do want to go and really are serious about getting that education should have no problem whatsoever paying that 25%. Specifically, should there be a provision in the bill that requires the student to have a part-time job, or at the very least, volunteer in some capacity in the community in exchange for the 2 years of community college? Again, just try to make sure that we get something back and we balance out the, as I say, idiots who will go to college because their parents encourage them to. Because the parents never think their child is an idiot. They just say, my child is smart. He's just not good at school. Okay. Or they'll go because their buddies are going, or they'll go because a pretty girl is going. We know this is going to happen. We know there are going to be some young teens who graduate high school and go to community college just because it's free and it's there. So let's try and figure a way to let them have some skin in the game. Lastly, on the 2 years of community college, I have a specific concern how it might affect enlistment in the military. There are a lot of kids who get done high school and they enlist in the military. And the military can provide a vehicle for that young man or woman to now go to college. So how will that affect that? Will it lower the enlistment in our military? Because a lot of these high school graduates might not have a whole lot of direction, but the military gives it to them. Once they get themselves in the military, they go on to great things. They get some direction that they needed. They may not get that in community college, but they'll get it in the military. So I worry that this 2-year free community college may misdirect some kids away from the military, where they would go on, they could get a college degree from there if they wanted to. They could come out and do great things in the community, become police officers, become firefighters. That's a specific concern that I have. How about the paid family leave, medical leave? Currently, the bill requires 3 months leave and a minimum of 2/3 of pay, up to $4,000 a month. This would be leave for victims of assault, to care for a sick family member, and I'm good with all of the things. Pretty much all the things that paid family leave allows for, I'm good with, except maybe bonding with a newborn. That's how it's written in the bill. Paid medical leave for 3 months, 2/3 of pay, to bond with a newborn child. Can you do it in 2 weeks? Can you bond with that newborn child in 2 weeks? Come on. The baby sleeps 18 hours a day anyway. Now that may sound insensitive, but we're talking about trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. We got to start making some priorities here. Now, how about some specific concerns on the big one? The big one that they love to talk about the most, the child care tax credit. Now, this may come as a shock to some people, but child care doesn't cost the same in New York City or the Bay Area in California as it does in Huntington, West Virginia. But the bill says everyone gets the same amount. It's based on the number of children and their ages. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So a single mother or a mother and father with 3 children in New York City get the same amount for childcare as a single mother with 3 kids in West Virginia, where the childcare has got to be much cheaper. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The dollar's not going to go as far. I have a concern with that. This may also come as a shock to you. Some people who've been getting that childcare tax credit since July 15th may not be using all of the money for childcare.
How dare you?
No, it's true. It's true, Greta Thunberg. Some people have been taking that money, that $300, $600, $900, however much it is, depending on how many children they have and what ages they are, they've been taking that money and not using it on childcare. Some people have been taking the money and maybe using it for childcare, but then not going back to work. I have a specific concern about that, Bernie Sanders. I'm concerned that some people got the money that was supposed to be for childcare to send their child away for childcare, even though they already had existing programs in their state that they were taking advantage of, like Head Start. So I would propose that there be a provision in the bill to ensure that the money that's being given to people for childcare actually gets used for childcare, that it actually goes where it's intended, to a provider, to an organization, wherever the child is enrolled or receiving childcare. I would also propose, just like the earned income credit, just like childcare in the past, it would come with a work requirement. If the idea is to give the money to people to provide for childcare so that they can go to work, I think they should go to work. Specifically, with specificity, I have a major concern with this administration saying the Build Back Better agenda is paid for or will cost $0. The paper that it took to write the Build Back Better agenda on probably cost the American taxpayers $8 million. Please don't treat the American people like fools and continue to try and tell us that this agenda will cost $0 in a country and with a government that can't change a light bulb in a federal building for less than $100,000. Please don't do that. I even saw a tweet from Julian Castro, who I consider to be an okay guy, smart guy. Julian Castro, or Juan, whichever, I think they're the same person, but tweeted out, for every dollar we spend on the child care tax credit, we'll get $8 back. We'll get $8 back. So not only will this agenda cost $0, now we're making money? Oh, boy. I don't know if they're stupid and truly believe that, or they just think we're stupid. For every dollar we spend on the child care tax credit, we'll get $8 back. Look it up. Julian Castro tweeted that. I specifically have a concern when I'm told things like that, and I'm expected to believe them. I have specific concerns. How am I doing, by the way, Bernie, on giving you some specifics here? I have specific concerns that just this week, I saw 2 stories about money that was allocated to states for certain programs that was not going to be used for those programs. In Alabama, the governor is using COVID relief funds to build prisons. In South Dakota, the governor is using $5 million in COVID relief funds for a tourism ad campaign. A tourism ad campaign in South Dakota. Now, I don't know what kind of ad campaign she intends to run for $5 million to get people to come to South Dakota. But if I want to go look at dirt, I can just step right outside my door. But the point is, how can we be sure that some of this $3.5 trillion over the next 10 years will be used as it's intended to, that we will get the benefits that we expect to get if the states don't use it as it's intended to, if there's not buy-in by the states, which we all know there's not buy-in from all of the states, particularly the red states. The same thing happened with Obamacare. There wasn't buy-in, not because it was a bad bill. I had my issues with Obamacare, and so did other people later on down the line. but there was no buy-in from red states on Obamacare, and so the program did not work the way it was intended to work. You didn't get all the benefits from Obamacare when all the states didn't expand Medicaid. The idea was that we would lower the cost of health care. That's what part of what Obamacare was supposed to do, lower the cost of health care, not just get people insurance. We wanted to get people insurance, but we also wanted to lower the cost of health care. That didn't work because the program didn't work because there wasn't buy-in from everyone necessary. How do we make sure that doesn't happen with these programs? That's a specific concern. Finally, Bernie, I have a specific concern that you wrote this bill, you promote this bill, and you can't even seem to comb your hair. No, wait. I was supposed to take that one out. Hang on. Here we go. Finally, I have a specific concern that one of the biggest questions I had was, how do we make sure that the way you intend on paying for this legislation is by raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations? How do we make sure that doesn't then ricochet back onto the middle class as it has in the past? And as luck would have it, a reporter decided to ask Press Secretary Jen Psaki that very question. It may not seem like he's asking that question, but he is. She gets it. She understands. It's based on, again, one of these studies that gets you the result that you want to get, but still by a right-leaning group that says it won't really be the corporations paying the taxes. So there was a report put out about who would really bear the brunt of the tax increases for this bill. The reporter posed a question to Jen Psaki, and let's just see how she answered it.
I want to ask you about what Republicans are pointing to in the analysis from the Joint Committee on Taxation. They say, according to, if I've read the chart correctly, more than 16% of taxpayers would see their taxes increase under the bill that's approved by the House Ways and Means Committee. Will the president sign that bill as it is coming out of that committee, or will he insist on the changes so that he will maintain his commitment that taxes won't go up on people making $400,000 a year?
I have not looked at the document or the report that you have put out. Obviously, the president, or that you have referenced, I should say, that the Republicans put out. Obviously, the president's commitment remains not raising taxes for anyone making less than $400,000 a year. There are some, and I'm not sure if this is the case in this report, who argue that in the past, companies have passed on these costs to consumers. I'm not sure if that's the argument being made in this report. We feel that that's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that. But I will take a closer look at this report and get you a more substantive response. Go ahead, Jackie.
Let me just play the very end of that for you again, because that's the really important part.
There are some, and I'm not sure if this is the case in this report, who argue that in the past, companies have passed on these costs to consumers. I'm not sure if that's the argument being made in this report. We feel that that's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that.
That is the argument being made in this report. It is the concern that corporations would pass on the cost to consumers. And Jen Psaki, White House press secretary's answer to that is that's absurd. The American people wouldn't stand for that. Thank you, Jen Psaki. For a minute there, I thought maybe this administration did not have an answer for how you would make sure corporations didn't pass along the tax increases to me. But thank you. Apparently, you do have an answer. It's absurd, and the American people would not stand for it. So now I know I can sleep soundly knowing that Comcast will not raise my cable bill because they know I won't stand for it. Thank you, Jen Psaki. That's absurd. That's an absurd answer. That's what they come up with. That's what they come up with to make sure that, as I've talked about, corporations passing on the increased cost to us, to the middle class. How do you make sure that doesn't happen? That's their answer? Bernie, with specificity, I'm worried about that. And whether you know it or not, we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it when we go out to eat, when you go out to use your debit card, if you go to that pizza place you like to go to for lunch. The costs aren't just going up because of supply chain problems. Their costs are going up because their costs are going up for that particular small business. They're being charged higher fees to accept debit cards, and they're passing the cost along to us. This is what happens. This is what happens with these bills when there's nothing done to prevent it from happening. The increased cost gets put on us. So it's useless to talk about not raising taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 when the increase may not be in taxes, but it's in everything that we pay for every single day. Groceries, gas, internet porn. What good does any of it do us if the corporations are just going to pass the cost down along to us? So Bernie got his jaw all out of joint about Joe Manchin using the word entitlement. And it's not about us becoming an entitlement society. We are already very much an entitlement society. The problem is not enough of the deserved, legitimate entitlement goes to the people that it should, to the senior citizens, teachers, cops, firefighters, the military. That's where the deserved entitlement should go. Should our active duty military have to pay for child care? I don't think so. I think they should get child care along with a uniform and a gun. It's not about no entitlements. It's about no entitlements for deadbeats. No entitlements for millionaires who hide their money somewhere in Pandora's box. No entitlements for a guy with 8 kids with 10 different women. Wait, no. 10 women, 8 kids. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. No entitlement for a guy who storms the Capitol with horns on his head. No entitlement for tax cheats or welfare cheats. Entitlement is not a bad word. It's deserved in some cases. It's needed in others. Sometimes you're better off spending the money now so you don't spend more later. I'm all for that. I understand that. A lot of people in the center left and center right understand it. You're better off educating a child now to keep him out of prison later. But the fact of the matter is, if we look back at a CRS report back from 2011, now that may seem like a long time ago, but things haven't changed very much since then, and I don't know if they've done a comprehensive report of this type since then. So don't get thrown off by the fact that it's from 2011. But a CRS report, which is the Congressional Research Service. They are a non-biased, nonpartisan service that members of Congress can ask to give reports on budget items such as entitlement spending. The CRS found that in 2011, there were 83 federal social programs, some of them overlapping programs, that added up to just over $1 trillion in spending. It was actually the largest expense in our federal budget in 2011. As I say, sounds like a long time ago, but it hasn't changed very much. I just read some of these 83 programs to you a couple of shows ago when I read about all the different programs that the U.S. offers. So we're still around that 83 number, and we're still around that $1 trillion number that we spend right now. My point being, over the past 30 years, according to this report, spending in the 10 largest programs of the 83, the 10 largest programs has increased 378% over the last 30 years. The 10 largest programs has increased, that would be things like food stamps, has increased 378% when you adjust it for inflation. So that's in good times and bad. That's good economies and bad economies. So the last area of specific concern, Bernie Sanders, if you're going to increase spending on social programs, whether the economy is good, whether the economy is bad, whether you're claiming you're lifting people out of poverty or not, how does it ever end? How does the spending ever end? When will you come to us, the American people, and say, because we put this child care program in place, we can now drastically cut the amount we spend in the Head Start program, or that we can spend in the lunch school program. Because we put this 2-year college education program in place, we can now drastically cut how much we spend on Pell Grants. When will you tell us how this spending is an investment that saves us money? When will you endeavor to tell us what social programs we'll be able to get rid of because of the social programs you're creating today? When will that ever happen? Are we just adding to and expanding the 83? That doesn't make sense. If that's the case, then we must not really be helping people. If there's still a need for all 83 of these programs and a need to add on to the trillion, that we're already spending with an additional 3.5 trillion over 10 years, that doesn't make sense. At least with climate change, we say, well, if we do this today, 20 years from now, we'll lower our carbon emissions. We'll fix the climate change problem. If we start now, 25 years from now, things will get better. But we're not even saying that with this bill. We're not even saying if we do these things now, things will get better 25 years from now. We won't need any to raise food stamps, the amount of food stamps. We won't need to keep paying for childcare for people because everyone will be lifted out of poverty by then. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel with you, Bernie. There was a time when you were screaming if businesses would just pay their workers $15 an hour. If they would just pay $15 an hour, we could lift so many people out of poverty. Well, those businesses do pay $15 an hour now. Most of them, Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's, they're all paying over $15 an hour. But apparently it's not enough to lift people out of poverty. Apparently, in some cases, it's not even enough to entice people to come to work. Last thing, I promise, with specificity, Bernie, I have a problem with you. Because you're making it harder for center-left and center-right people to get things done. And you're particularly making it tougher for Democrats to hold on to Congress. You've probably already cost Democrats some seats in Congress, just as you cost Hillary Clinton the election. Since I've been doing this show, I've put clips on my website. I have a clip from Republican Senator Ron Johnson, where he said he wasn't afraid on January 6th because those people were patriots. But if they had been Black Lives Matter protesters, on the other hand, he would have been afraid. I have a clip from a Republican state legislator who called another state legislator buckwheat. Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene stumble around the halls of Congress like a bull in a china shop. Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham swear they would never do something, and then they do it. And then they turn around and swear they won't ever do it again. You can't nominate a Supreme Court justice in the last year of an administration and then nominates one in the last week of an administration. When Donald Trump was president, if you walked out your door and picked up a rock and threw it, you would hit a person he insulted. He insulted every person walking on the planet Earth. Black people, rural white people, Asian people with the Kung flu, disabled people, veterans, Hispanic people, gay people, women, people from African countries, people from European countries. Donald Trump insulted everyone, and he lost 2 popular votes. Donald Trump couldn't win a popular vote in his own family. At best, he could tie. If you held a popular vote for Donald Trump in his own family, Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric would vote for Donald. Melania, Tiffany, and Barron would vote against. There's no argument there. He couldn't win a popular vote in his own family. And yet he has 90% approval in the Republican Party. And yet the Republicans have a very strong opportunity to take back Congress in the next election. And it's not because all of those people are stupid, Bernie. It's because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of you, and they're afraid of your ideas. Not because they're bad ideas, but because you're trying to shove them down people's throats, force them to take them whether they like it or not, because you think you're smarter than they are. You think you're better than they are. You think you know better what's best for them than they do. And until you recognize that, and until you get past that and are willing to negotiate and compromise, you're going to continue to struggle to win elections against crazy people. And for people who don't like what I'm saying, come see me in a few years when Bernie Sanders cost Kamala Harris the election for president. I feel like I've done another fantastic show. I think that was a good one. I don't know. What are my top downloaded shows of all time? That's a good question, actually. I'll have to look that up. I'll let you know next show. I'll give you my 5 top downloaded shows. I know the last show. What was the last show I did? I forget already. I forget. Whatever. But I know the last one's got to be in the top 5. Maybe this one will make it into. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks for listening. Follow me on Twitter @comparison_show. @comparison_show. Go to the website www.thecomparisongroup.com. www.thecomparisongroup.com. I'll put that CRS report that I talked about up there. You can read about it. The CRS, that's a pretty good resource. They also have the bill, the reconciliation bill, all detailed out for you. Again, they're non-biased, so they don't have any political spin. They just tell you straight up what's in the bill, what it's all about. So I'll put that up there, the CRS. You can check it out. You can check out the other resources they have available if you have absolutely nothing to do with your life. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. And I will see you next time.